Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, the Internet's original podcast. Since the year 2000, always ahead of the curve, always on your side. A true warrior for truth and justice, Meria and her guests leave nothing out, and no one is off limits. There is only one truth, the rest is lies. Sit back, enjoy the education with a true daughter of Mother Earth. Sharp New York wit, spiritual knowing, and a very dry sense of humor, Meria will dissect the news and lies to make it all palatable. Education is power. Meria delivers rapid-fire truth like no one else can. Here she is, the mouth that roars, the legendary Meria Heller. Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to The Bigger Picture with my co-host and friend, Michael Reccia, author of many books. And a lot of you are really loving his latest book, Many Voices, One Mission, Group Soul Wisdom from the Joseph Perspective. And I will tell you, Michael, I love this book too. It reads a lot different than the other books, and it makes it even more fun.
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, of course, there are many voices in there, many different viewpoints on the same theme. Well,
lots of different personalities, and they're all fun personalities. A couple of them seem very familiar to me. You know?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I love that whole boat story, but we'll be talking about that in the show.
Okay.
But I do have questions from listeners. And one thing, and it's interesting because I discussed the same things almost with my astrologer, Joe Anthony, on our astrology show. So it's not something that seems to be going away. And it evolved into basically being, I guess, today's topic of the show. What I'm finding is a lot of people no longer want to stay on this planet. They just don't want to live here anymore. Are you finding that from anybody you're talking to?
Yes. But I think that the problem is that if you're spiritually aware, there is a weariness to the earth at the moment that is getting into people's bones, as it were. And, even if this is the last time that we're here, and please God it is for many of us, we still have to complete the arc that we've started by coming here in the first place. So I think what we've got to say to ourselves is that we're not here for very long anyway. If we live to be 176, it's not long, relatively speaking.
Right.
And so it would be a good idea to use that time as wisely as we can, to illuminate the planet as much as we can, and to lift consciousness, global consciousness, as much as we can. We know that we're going back. We know that we're not coming back, so we may as well do something with the time that we've got left here that is constructive, that is illuminating for the rest of mankind.
Right. Well, you and I tend to always be in sync. So this morning when I saw you post your live video reading from Your Life After Death, which everybody should read, I chuckled because I had put up my post for the day, my spiritual note for the day, which was the timing of your death is always chosen by you.
Yes.
And I think that that's a hard concept for people to get, especially the way some people exit this planet. But I've always known intuitively that you just can't interfere with a person's birth or death. It always goes the way that they planned it before they came in.
Yes, it is. It's an arc of energy. And I feel that there will be a tendency with that arc of energy for the person to exit this world in a certain way. There might be, 3 or 4 options as to how that end manifests itself, but there is a certain karmic folding up with the end of a person's life. And having activated that arc of energy, we're supposed to see it out. We have to remember that each of us is here because we chose to be here. We either chose to be here because we wanted to come back, because there was something that we were missing, or something that we were pulled back into, or we came here because we wanted to help. We came here because we wanted to change things on Earth. So we did make the decision. We made the decision to have one last journey here, and we've got to see that journey out. And yes, it is tough here at the moment, and it is dark here at the moment, and it has been getting darker over the last few years. But that doesn't mean that we have to give up.
Right.
We have to bring in the light. We have to bring in elevated ways of thinking. We have to live by example. And we can do that in big ways globally, and we can do that in small ways with the person next door, the person at the bus stop, the person that we meet in the supermarket, just in our attitude, just so that we display a different way. And one of the best and most telling ways that we can make a difference is by stepping back from the anger that everyone else seems to have at the moment.
Well, I think the anger, would you say that the anger is also being reflected in what's happening on the earth? We've got volcanoes blowing, for in Hawaii, we have one blowing in Guatemala. We've got floods, we've got fires, we have pestilence. Do you think it's a reflection of everybody's anger, or do you think that's creating the anger?
No, I think it's, as you said initially, it's a reflection of everyone's anger. That the thoughts that we put out, the jagged thoughts, the barbs, the anger vibrations that we put out have an effect on the earth. We live in harmony, and I mean in harmony in that we are part of the earth with the earth, and so everything we do affects the earth. And if you have millions, billions of people putting out anger, putting out a feeling of unrest, putting out violence, then the earth waits and waits and waits until it can wait no longer, and it has to react against that violence. It has to express, get rid of that vibration that's in its very atmosphere. And one of the favorite phrases from people when something happens, when there's a volcano or a tsunami or some other natural disaster, is to say, "Why God? Why, God, did you let this happen?" And to shake your fist at the sky and say, "Why, God? Why have you let this happen?" He didn't let it happen. We made it happen. And that's a tough thing to realize, but it is the truth. If we en masse gave out harmonious thoughts, the earth would be harmonious. The earth would be calm. The earth would react in the way that it was supposed to originally with us. And so we have to send out love and harmony and peace to the earth if we want the earth to be loving and harmonious and peaceful back to us.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever sent as much Reiki or energy to the field as I've been doing in the last few months.
I'm sure.
It's just everything is so crazy, and I just try to hold that light. It's hard to do, especially to send that light to world leaders. It's extremely difficult, but I do it anyway.
Yes.
And it's I can understand how some people feel like giving up, and a lot of people have a lot of personal or physical problems that are also making them want to give up. And that's kind of the kind of questions that I've gotten from listeners for today's show.
Okay.
And I'd like to start with, some of those. One of them is from a woman I know who happens to be losing her eyesight. And she said, "Would you please ask Michael if there's some secret to getting to the other side?" That's one of her questions.
A secret to getting to the other side?
Right. She says, because of your books, she's no longer afraid of death. Your books have changed her life, but she says she's just impatient because she can't stand the thought of going blind. So here we go again, where people want out. I mean, sometimes our lessons are harder than we want to handle.
Yes, I think in the ladies... What's the lady's name, please?
Her name is Susan.
Susan, I'm terribly sorry to hear that you've got this condition with your eyes, but remember that you can, to a certain extent, the extent that you believe, regenerate your body. Now, that will be difficult for you because you've probably got medical opinion that says otherwise. Your own psyche will say otherwise. But the truth is that if you bring light into your eyes, if you sit and meditate and see light beginning in your eyes, beautiful, wonderful white light, and then see that white light expanding and expanding in brilliance until it becomes all that you can see. And if you affirm that your eyes are not going to go totally, that you are not going to go totally blind, and then believe that and thank whatever your idea of divinity is for that on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis, however often you can manage, then you can improve your condition. That will seem like terrible advice to you at this time, but it is advice that works nevertheless. I've seen it work. I've done it myself, for myself. I've seen it work via my spiritual teacher, who has prayed over lumps and bumps that people have brought to her many years ago when she was with us, and those lumps and bumps disappeared the same day. Mm-hmm. I've healed conditions with my partner Jane that otherwise we would have taken to the doctor, simply by putting my hand over the area of the body that was affected and putting light into that area of the body. So don't give up, Susan. Don't give up. Just rely on the God that is within you and that ability that is within you to regenerate yourself. Light regenerates. Light perfects. Light brings us back into harmony. And it's that light that we've just been talking about that the earth needs too. So keep on keeping on, and let's see an improvement there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sending her Reiki as well, and I'm going to continue to do that because we're all in this together. And I also a few people want to know when Many Voices is going to be on audio.
It's not on audio. It is going to be on as an ebook in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, so they can pick it up for their Kindle internationally within the next couple of weeks. I'll be putting a post on Facebook as soon as that's happened. But we formatted it a few weeks ago, submitted it to eBookit, who format our books for us, and I've just had notification that it will go live in the next few days. It's a difficult one to do as an audiobook because you've got so many different personalities in there.
Right.
And they would all have to be, if read by me. So you wouldn't get any variation.
Right.
We could do with a cast of players to play the different guides. So never say never. It may come out as an audiobook, but certainly it will be out as an ebook within the next few days.
Okay, great. All right, another question, which is pretty damn interesting. Okay. This one is from Christine. She says, can someone who's old and sick still be alive by sticking or sucking somebody else's energy like a parasite? And if so, how do you end the vampire sucking the energy?
Well, there's a lot of this happens, and sometimes you have people who will deliberately take your energy because they sense that they feel better when they're around somebody that has more energy than they have. But oftentimes you have souls who don't realize that they are draining your energy. They might be ill themselves, or they're depressed, or there's a terrible situation in their lives. And when you come into contact with them, it's almost an automatic thing. And you can see it in that if you look in the mirror as you're talking to them, you will look worse and they will look better.
Right.
But you can protect yourself. If you know that you're going into a situation where inevitably you're going to come across someone who has had an effect, a negative effect on your energies before, then you can see yourself wrapped in a silver bubble, as though you've put a mirror, an egg-shaped mirror, around you, with silver on the inside and the mirrored surface on the outside. And also make sure that your chakras, the principal chakras, are shut whilst you're talking to that person. And ask for divine protection. But as I say, many times it's not because the person is evil or doing something consciously to you. They just have situations in their life that they haven't learned how to deal with for themselves by bringing in the light that is at their core, at the core of their soul. And so automatically they look for it outside of themselves, as so many of us do. And if they come into contact with someone that has a lot of energy, that energy automatically migrates, leaving you exhausted. But you don't have to have it.
Right. You can absolutely learn how to shut down your chakra system, that's for sure. But do you think that somebody can cling onto someone else's energy, even though they themselves are dying, and prolong their life?
Sorry, is the question, can we sustain someone by donating our energy to them as they're dying? Is that what's being asked?
Well, the question is if the person is dying and they're draining on your energy to stay alive,
Right.
Does that extend their life? Is that something they actually can do?
Well, it will certainly make them feel better to have you around, but in the dying stages of a life, you are completing that arc that we talked about earlier in the show. So it is inevitable at that stage that they are going to detach. They are going to detach from the physical body, and they are going to go back to the spiritual spheres. So they can feel better because you're around. They can invest in some of your energy, as it were. But it shouldn't normally make any difference to the time and the conclusion of the arc when they have to depart.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's see, we have a little bit different question from Patricia. She says, first of all, she loves the book, Many Voices in One Mission. Wanted to let you know that. And she said the part about what's in the past is in the past is very important. She said, because I know a lot of people that still live in the past. But that doesn't go to her question. Her question is what makes us more of who we are in this incarnation, our present DNA or our past life experiences?
Okay. Well, first of all, hello, Patricia. You're always supporting us on the show. It's great to hear from you again. What makes us more of who we are? It depends how you define who we are. If you look at the personality here in this lifetime, that's not necessarily who we are. That personality arms us with traits that we need to conquer or adapt or learn from in order that we can evolve as the souls that we really are. So for me, DNA is simply the decoration on the body. It's the weaving of the body, of a particular body. But a particular body, I can only liken to a particular car. You know, what sort of car do you want to drive? Right. And there are lots and lots of cars, but you wouldn't identify with them and say, I am that car. You would say, I'm the driver, not the car. And you are the driver. When you come back here, you draw spiritually on the experiences that you have had in past lives, plus the experiences that come to you, the challenges that come to you in this present life, in order for you to evolve away from those traits that tie you to the earth and from those traits that are holding you back spiritually. The key, if you've come here, and we have, is to illuminate ourselves and raise our vibrations. And we raise our vibrations. If we don't do it by meditation and by acknowledging that we are souls and that we are traveling through a physical landscape, then we have to do it through the hard knocks that come to us, the challenges, the signposts that come to us during our lives. And those signposts and hard knocks are not there to pull us down. They are there to lift us up by us learning from them. And so who we are is enhanced by the way that we approach and move through the challenges that come to us in life. Not, in my view, through DNA, which is simply a mechanism for forming the body that we have at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, many years ago, God, it has to be maybe 30 years ago, the New Age started teaching about ascension. And my intuition, looking at all of it, told me they were wrong, okay? Yeah. Because their idea of ascension and what they were teaching at the time, and probably still are, I don't really pay attention to it, was that the goal of being here was to be able to ascend out there. In other words, to be able to get your body from here to the other side. Yes. But to me, ascension was always about assembling or reassembling everybody you ever were and moving as one being inside the body you're in right now.
Absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that, Maria. I've seen a lot about ascension that has made me, I don't know whether I want to laugh or want to cry about it.
Right.
Because as you say, there was, or perhaps still is, a New Age view that on a certain day at a certain time, certain people will ascend bodily and leave the rest of us here in the mire.
Right.
Now, we are all part of each other. And we know through the mechanisms that are in place, the physical and the spiritual mechanisms that are in place, that we leave the body behind. It is only a shell. It's only that car that we're talking about. So in my view, there is never going to be a date when we physically move onto a higher plane, because that higher plane isn't physical. It's a rarefied vibration, and whilst we will look much as we look now, if we choose to, we will not have the heavy matter body that we have at this stage. So that worries me about the views of ascension that some people have. The other thing is that we cannot simply ignore, because we are one organism, we cannot simply ignore the rest of the souls that would be here were we to ascend, either physically or vibrationally. We cannot turn our back on the rest of the souls here. It's sort of a one-out, all-out situation. And we feel that pull. Whatever we feel physically at the moment, spiritually, when we get to the other side and we have elevated ourselves sufficiently, we feel that there is a pull and that there are people left still in the mire. Mm-hmm. And so this is why the spirit guides come back to help us. This is why angelic help is with us, because there is that feeling that until everybody is out, those spirits can't rest. And those spirits feel sorry for us, they feel upset about us, and they work day and night, in our terms, to get us out of this mess. And that's what we should be doing too, for all of us, for the one organism. So ascension physically? No. An ascension where we split off and half of us remain here? I don't see that either.
Right. Well, doesn't that kind of sound the same as religion, where each religion thinks they're the only ones that are going to get raptured or ascend and everybody else is just going to be left behind?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing how many religions feel that there's a certain number that will go up and the rest will be damned forever.
Right.
And there's the religions that say that, as you say, only our club will move up. It's just for us. We've got it right. We're sorted. We link to God. God loves us, and not anybody else who is not of us. And I feel that's an abomination, an absolute abomination. See, there's this strange concept that religion and spirituality are the same thing, and they're not. And for many people, that's a very difficult idea to grasp, that religion and spirituality are not necessarily the same thing. Religion is, for the most part, man-made. Spirituality is inherent. It's what we are at core. We're born with it. Mm-hmm. We can't help but be spiritual. Whether we work negatively or positively, we are being spiritual because we are, in truth, spiritual beings. So the trappings of religion, in many cases, are nothing to do with what we are at core.
Right, exactly. I mean, there are people that, listen, I agree with you that we're born naturally spiritual, naturally curious, and with a natural knowing that society and the programs down here immediately remove from us by the time we're in elementary school.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We are conditioned to not make waves. We're conditioned not to question. We're conditioned to fit in to society. And we're conditioned via society to fit into the field and to feed the field with more of the status quo so that the field remains negatively charged. I should explain, if there are new listeners, that we're talking about the field of human consciousness.
Right.
That we all contribute to by our thoughts and motives on a daily basis.
Right.
And that field has been set to negative, which is why we've got the Earth that we see at the moment, for millennia. It's been set to negative since the time of what Joseph describes as the fall, an experiment, if you will, that went wrong and plunged us into a kind of spiritual darkness. But we did this, and we're still suffering as a result of it. But yeah, absolutely right. Society, we are programmed to fit into society. Don't question, don't ask, don't look at things in a different way, don't use your mind, don't use your heart, don't use your spirit. And that makes more of the same, and witness the world we've got.
Right. Well, many years ago, when I was really stepping up to what I was here to do, it came at a high cost to me, a very high cost. Friendships, relationships, everything. And I remember one day I was crying. I wasn't just talking to Spirit, I was crying to Spirit. And the voice in my head said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, because everybody I loved has turned their back on me. And the answer I got reminds me of what you just said a few minutes ago, Michael. It said, you're not here to make friends, you're here to make waves.
Yes, that's wonderfully put.
And that really snapped me right out of that pity party I was having for myself. And I was able to move forward. You know, and then I'm reading your book, Many Voices, One Mission, and I have to tell you, I find some chuckles all the way through because you and I have so many things that are so similar that sometimes it's kind of crazy, I have to say that. But when I was reading a passage by Silver Star and the Big Indian, this was on, page 50, and I believe it was Spiritual Star talking about this particular book. He said the purpose of the book was to act as a kind of spiritual alarm clock. And I can tell you, since I was in my 30s, some of the beings that come through to me refer to me as the cosmic alarm clock. So I had to laugh. And then, of course, Silver Star goes on to say something I've been telling people for so long that I'm bored saying it. The journey of the soul isn't outwards, but inwards.
Yes.
And people are still looking outside themselves for those answers, for someone else to tell them this is the way, instead of going within. Could that be contributing to why people are so fearful and so disgusted now?
Absolutely. We are taught from an early age that we should be dependent on others. We're never taught that we can be dependent on ourselves and the God within, the divine within, for the solutions to everything that challenges us in our lives. And we're taught to think from the mind, of course, because that is the physical organ that seems to sort out our problems. But in reality, it's the heart that we should be going to. We have two minds. That's an absolute fact. We have a mind in the head that is linked to this earth and is a fight or flight mechanism. And we have a mind in the heart that links to the divine, that links to what we really are. And that mind in the heart, if we go to it and practice going to it on a daily basis, we can ask anything of. We can see the truth of situations. We can take our challenges inwards, into the heart center, and reside there in the heart center until we get an answer as to how to proceed. And unlike the physical mind that only seeks to survive, the heart mind never lets us down. Wow. If we keep our emotions out of that exercise of going to the heart mind, it never lets us down. It provides us with the truth, with a clear vision, and the way to proceed in any challenge, in any situation. And it also allows us to tap into that healing light that we were talking about earlier, that heals us and restores us and reharmonizes our body with a higher vibration. And so there is a wonderful benefit in learning to go to the heart mind. And we should be doing it, each of us, on a daily basis, rather than looking outside. This is not to say that we don't need people, that we don't seek others' advice. Of course we do. But we also go to our source first and seek our own advice, our spiritual advice. And that gives us such strength in all life's challenges, to be able to go in and say, what do I think? Never mind what anybody else thinks.
Right.
What do I think? Not from the mind that will seek advice from others and then do whatever it wants to do, will ally itself with the advice that resonates with what it wants to do in the first place. What do I think from the heart? What do I think from the core? What do I think from my spirit, from the eternal angelic being that I am? And then life begins to change for us, and we, for the first time, take control, which is a marvelous, marvelous freedom.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I have a native friend in Florida, and he said that one of the trips most people don't want to make is the shortest trip of all. It's the 12 inches from their mind to their heart.
Extremely well put, yes.
And, you know, that's another thing that I've always remembered. I have so many weird things that just stick in my head. But it is really the truth. And then I forget which one. It might have been the Big Indian talking or Silver Star, when he says, you see, life is a circle. Now, I have to tell you that you know my background somewhat, and after I left the Jehovah's Witness organization, I was still looking, I was still seeking and searching. And I remember going to so many different religions, and I will say that I really liked the black churches the most because the music was great. But I never found anything that made sense to me until I met Sun Bear and I saw the medicine wheel, which of course is a circle. And it totally changed my whole life. So to see how many references, not just in this book, to other books you have to the circle, and that life is a circle, again, makes me kind of giggle a little bit. I'm like, okay, this is a lot of confirmation for me.
Yeah. Joseph O describes God as the dot within the circle, and describes the dot within the circle as an ancient symbol for God. And that we are enclosed within God. We are part of God. Our aura, if you could see our aura, of course, and you can, Maria, is also circular. The passage we take from life to death is not a straight line. It's a circle. It brings us back to our start point, but with a new set of values, a new set of vibrations, and then we move into other circles or spheres of existence and move through those. So that the whole of the physical universes and spiritual universes are based on the circle, on God encapsulating, embracing, encompassing us, and we being within that light and that being, that creative being.
Right. Well, obviously, many Aboriginal tribes have been familiar with that because they've all used a circle of some sort or a medicine wheel of some sort, which always has a center stone to represent the creator. And, these are the people call pagans and don't know what they're talking about. But obviously,
yes,
they know more than most religions. Michael, we need to take a short break. Stay with us. Michael and I will be right back. Hi, this is Maria Heller. If you're enjoying this show, please consider listening to the rest of it, along with hundreds of other hours of education, by a small subscription on my site. Get over to meria.net, meria.net. You are the only thing that supports this show. There's no corporate control, and there's plenty of education on site. So please consider either a subscription or a donation to keep the work going. There are too many alternative voices out there that are being silenced because of lack of support. So if you don't want MSM to be the only mind-controlling news out there, please consider supporting the people that support you and help us all save something for the future for our children. Thank you so much.